All right, so we will finish language arts next week. We are down to last handful of lessons. I think it goes to 20 lessons. We're on 15, so we are flying through them. Today, Unit 4, Lesson 15, Advanced Pronoun Use. We'll start with that. We'll go to Advanced Verb Subject Agreement. So let's get into it and listen to the audio. We'll find out what it means by advanced pronoun use.
As you learned in Lesson 2, subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, they, perform an action or are described. Object pronouns receive actions. For example, in the sentence, he saw it, he performs the action, and it receives the action. Object pronouns me, you, him, her, them, us, and it usually follow verbs or words such as above, at, before, between, from, near, of, and to. Be careful when pronouns are compound. Their case remains the same. The pronoun who indicates an unknown person or persons, or introduces a part of a sentence that gives more information about a person or individuals. Who changes to whom when it is an object. Remember, too, that the pronouns this, that, and which must have antecedents.
So the thing to start with here is understanding subject and object, right? We hear a lot, we've talked a lot about subject when it comes to writing a complete sentence. You need your subject, your verb, and then the idea that completes a sentence. So subject, when we're thinking about, well, it doesn't matter if it's pronouns or not, is basically, right, the main idea or the main actor in a sentence. And like we said, it's usually at the beginning. It doesn't always have to be, but it's usually at the beginning. And so when it comes to pronouns, like we talked about pronouns, once you introduce a person, place, or thing, rather than continuously, repetitively repeating their name or whatever it is, you use those pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, in its place. So they change forms, whether they're the subject or the object. The object is sort of like the recipient of the action. It's what is sort of, typically in the middle or end of the sentence. That's where the action is directed towards. The subject is performing the action, and the object is receiving it. You can kind of think of it that way. So, like in a simple sentence, if I was to use I as a subject, I gave her my car. So we're using that as the subject pronoun. So I'm using I rather than me. And then her is the object. So rather than use she, I use her as an object pronoun. I gave her my car. Now, if we flipped it around and I made her the subject of the sentence, that would turn to she. And then I would turn to me. So she gave me her car. You see how it depends on whether you're the subject or the object. And that's a lot of times, particularly with I and me, is where people will get confused. Especially if you're using like where it's you're using two, like Lisa and I went to the meeting. It's always I because I'm part of the subject. And then who and whom. That's another one that's often confused. Same rule. Who is the subject, whom is the object. So we'll take a look here and they'll have some more examples for us, of course. So our examples and explanations in the table. So here, right, they have, and often who is going to be asking, it's a pronoun that usually is involved in a question. Who is asking these questions? So who is the subject pronoun, right? Whom, and here's the tricky one because the object is in front of the subject. Whom is Sonia inviting? Whom, right, is the object pronoun or the persons Sonia is inviting. So Sonia is inviting. That Sonia is the subject there. Whom is the object. They're still receiving that action. Who is she inviting? Whom is she inviting? And you can also, if you replace, that's another good way to know. If I can replace Sonia with she rather than her, right? Obviously, if I said, who is her inviting? That is nonsensical. It's awkward. It doesn't sound right. Whom, or I'm sorry, even if I said, who is she inviting? Now that is tricky because now that sounds right. We're using the she, the the subject pronoun. So that way I know it's going to be whom rather than who. So it depends. If I can replace Sonia with she, then I know that it's an object pronoun. Whom is Sonia inviting? The man who asked the question is my brother. There, the subject pronoun who indicates a person doing the action of asking the question, right? So the man who, that's the subject. The total, that three words basically makes up the subject. The man who asked the question is my brother. Again, the man whom Sonia called was not at home. And again, we could replace Sonia with she. So the man whom she called was not at home. We're using subject pronoun she, so we know it's going to be whom. Whom represents the person receiving the action, right? I keep mentioning that. That makes it the object. Whoever, same rule. If you're using whoever, whomever, it's falls in the same thing. Whoever is your subject. Whoever wins the contest will receive the prize. Whoever means whatever person. So the person's identity is unknown and it's still the subject. Ella can hire whomever she chooses. And then whomever represents the person or individual receiving the action, right? We see that. That one is real straightforward because we see Ella can hire, right? We have the subject and verb at the beginning of the sentence there. Ella can hire. Now we know that there should be an object, whatever it is. Ella can hire whomever she chooses, right? It's going to be the object there. Kay and I. Now here we get into that I and me situation, right? Typically at the beginning of a sentence, it's going to be the subject. So Kay and I met Lola at the mall. I is part of the subject there. Part of the subject. Lola in here on the other end, object. Lola met Kay and me at the mall. Lola is the subject here. Met is our verb. So Lola met Kay and me. The Kay and me, the objects receiving that action. Me is part of the object of met. We have no news. This situation is a concern. So we talk about this and that, those things. We are concerned because we have no news. Using this alone gives the pronoun no antecedent. A noun can be added or the sentence rewritten to avoid this, right? So when you're writing and you start a new sentence, be careful with these, that, those. So we have no news. This situation is a concern. So if they only put this is a concern, the reader's going to be confused because they don't know what this is. Is it referring to the last sentence? Right? It's not clear. By using this situation, adding situation, they understand that the situation is we have no news. So that's another one where it comes up in like conversational language. We can drop that part of the subject when we're talking to people and they understand what we're saying. We have to be a little more careful when we write though. So think about that, especially when you're editing. If you use these, that, those forms of pronouns, make sure that you still have another part of a subject in there. so the reader will understand. We have no news. Okay, that's great. But if I said this is a concern, that is a concern because there's nothing directing to the other sentences there. Everyone knows his or her task. Okay, his or her is our object there. Everyone always takes singular pronouns. Okay, his or her. Okay, he cooked himself a gourmet dinner. He and himself are the same person, so we use pronouns like myself or yourself only when the subject and object are the same. Okay, so when it doesn't change, for if you're talking about one person, if you're talking about one thing in the sentence, that's when you use itself, herself, yourself, whatever it may be. Okay. All right, and then what it says on the side here. So again, who, whom, whoever, and whomever for people. Okay, that's pretty obvious. Use that or which for objects and ideas. So just make sure that, if you're talking about people, you refer to them as who, whom, whoever. If you're talking about a thing, it's that or which for objects and ideas. So for example, the car that I bought is 6 years old. The dealer who sold it to me is now out of business, right? You wouldn't say the car whom I bought, and you wouldn't say the dealer. Now, see, that's where it gets tricky, because it sounds a little less awkward if I said the dealer that sold it to me. But you want to make sure if you're referring to a person, you use who or who rather than that or this. That's one that gets a little tricky. Sometimes words come between pronoun and verb. Okay, so also watch. For example, choose someone with you. Choose someone who. Is that right? For example, choose someone who you know will do a good job. The pronoun who indicates the person who will do the action. The words come between who and the verb will do. Okay, so just keep in mind which one is the object and which one is the subject. All right, so let's start our quiz then. Grace, let's try, oh, wait a minute, let's see what we got here. It's for test taking tips. Is the pronoun who is similar to the pronouns he and she. Whom is similar to him and her. Okay, so if you're uncertain, that's a good idea too. Whether to use who or whom, try substituting one of the other pronouns. So, can I use him or her there, or do I need he or she? And that can help you decide whether it's a subject or object. All right, so Grace, let's try number one there.
Okay. I wonder whom is calling me again. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, change whom to whomever. B, change whom to whoever. C, change whom to her. And D, change whom to who. D.
Right, so you're changing that object pronoun to a subject pronoun. You could kind of try to trick you here because they add I wonder at the beginning, but that's all part of that opening subject. So I wonder who is calling me again, right? So me, and that should also help you there. Me is a object pronoun, so we're probably going to need a subject in there. Okay, and whom to who, so D is a dog for number one. And start our drop down boxes here. Dear Mr. Fisk, I am writing to apply for the sous chef position at Taste as advertised in Chicago Restaurants Weekly. I believe my training and experience qualify me for the position. My culinary interest began in high school, where I took courses in basic knife skills and restaurant management at the student-run restaurant. Upon graduation, blank received several certificate of excellence. Nilda, what we want to use here?
1 second. B.
Several students and I. Yeah, B. So we have an introductory phrase right there, upon graduation. We talked a lot about comma use and stuff. So upon graduation, that's when it happened, comma. So then right after that, we have our subject, several students and I. So I will be part of the subject. We're included in that. Several students and I received a certificate of excellence for the high grades and commitment we demonstrated throughout the culinary program. After high school, I attended the Fairfield Culinary Institute, where I completed the culinary arts program. I served as an intern for 3 months in a local restaurant. Blank gave me experience in assisting the grill and various line cooks. Sasha Gay, what do we want here?
This internship, C.
This internship, right? We just discussed that. If I'm using this, I don't want that standing alone at the beginning of a sentence. I want to make sure that the reader understands what this is. In this case, it's an internship. So C as in cat. This internship gave me experience in assisting the grill chef and various line cooks. From my entire graduating class, the faculty selected 5 blank. Christiana, what do we need here?
5 students. B.
It's A. So we're using the object me pronoun. So from my entire graduating class, the faculty selected 5 students, including me. So, you know, one of those tricks I mentioned, if it comes later in the sentence, check to see it's probably an object pronoun you need. So we're going to use me instead of I. So from my entire graduating class, the faculty selected 5 students, including me, for showing superior kitchen skills and knowledge. We received 6-month fellowships at upscale area restaurants. I served as a line cook at Restaurant Gastrique. After my fellowship, I thought to broaden my experience with other cuisines. I worked for 6 months as the pantry chef at a Vietnamese French fusion restaurant. Then I was promoted to grill chef, a position I currently hold. I would love to take on more responsibility in a kitchen, and Taste is a restaurant whose innovative approach I have long admired. I believe my skills, enthusiasm, and reliability would be a great match for your restaurant. I have several supervisors. Blank can provide references upon request. Grace, what do we want here?
Who can provide references? B. That's a boy.
Yes, B. I have several former teachers and supervisors who is part of the subject, right? It's referring to the several former teachers and supervisors can provide references upon request. Who can provide references upon request? Thank you for your consideration, Emily Karsten. All right. Did we get all the answers there? I'm going to say, yep. All right. This reminds me of me about 20 years ago, maybe a little less. I went to culinary school before I went on to undergrad and all that stuff, and had very similar experience to this person here, and did an internship. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Cameron Mitchell. That's the big restaurateur in Columbus. I worked in one of his restaurants in Pittsburgh for about 6 months. And then I realized at that point that I hated working in the kitchen. So I have Cameron Mitchell to thank for driving me into college. But yeah, so I got all those skills, and the only people that benefit from them now are my wife and daughter. Anyway, subject and object pronouns. So as it says again here, subjects do the action of a verb, right? That's the way to remember the subject of your subject pronouns, or just the subject of a sentence, not necessarily just pronouns, but the subject does the action of a verb. Object pronouns receive the action of a verb or follow words such as above, at, before, between, right? So you can use some of those prepositions there, from, near, of, and to. So these rules apply to compound subjects and objects as well. You also learn that pronouns have antecedents. So, right, it's got to point towards something, words to which the pronouns refer. You can't just have a pronoun, for that, this, which. If you're using those pronouns, you got to have an antecedent. You got to have some other noun there to explain what that pronoun is referring to. So these pronouns should not refer to a sentence or an idea. Like it says here, the meeting was canceled. This cancellation or event change news ruined my day, right? You can't just say this ruined my day. Sounds good. You can use that in conversational language when you're talking to your friends and family. If you write it though, you need to have that cancellation. You have to explain what was going on from the previous sentence. Add that in there. All right, and then more examples, right? So wrong, incorrect to say, who did you call yesterday? Whom did you call yesterday? Whom, in this case, all right, every once in a while, that object may come at the beginning of a sentence. Whom is the object of called. You is the subject, right? I'm sure whomever they hire will do well. I'm sure whoever they hire will do well. Whoever, part of the subject. Whoever is the subject of will do. They hire is an intervening expression that does not affect pronoun antecedent agreement. Incorrect here. Each student takes their place online. Instead, you got to say each student takes his or her place online. Why is that? Each is always singular and must take singular pronouns. So be careful if you're saying each, you're going to have to use his or her. Got to separate out into individuals. If you just said the students, you could just say the students took their place online, right? Or the students take their place online, but got to use his or her with each. Another incorrect example, send your reply to my secretary and myself. Myself is an object pronoun used only when the subject and object are the same. Yourself is used correctly here. So you replace myself, you say, send your reply to my secretary and me, and be sure to copy yourself on all correspondence. That's right, Nilda, that is the plan. We're gonna make you guys excellent writers. All right, and this is something that's gonna come up in your editing when you're reviewing your writing, taking a look at, does my subject and objects agree? We hired an assistant. This will help reduce your workload. So this, right, we'll run into that again. What the heck does this mean? So this must have an antecedent. The sentence can be corrected in a number of ways. So what they say here, they give you two examples. We hired an assistant to help reduce your workload. We hired an assistant. The new hire will help reduce your workload. You could also say, we hired an assistant to help reduce, or we hired an assistant. This person will help reduce your workload. You could say that. This individual will help, but we have to know, what the heck we're talking about as far as this, that, those. And then our final example here, did you send this for Mitch and I? I, that's a subject pronoun. Me is part of the compound object of for I. So a subject pronoun is incorrect in the sentence. Did you send this for Mitch and me? Did you send? You, that's the subject, right? Send is our verb at the beginning. Did you send this? Who's receiving that action? Even if it's a question, Mitch and me. Okay, and then our text here on the side says, when you pair the subject I or the object pronoun me with another noun or pronoun, I or me comes second. So that's the one rule there. So my sister and I, my sister and me, if it's an object pronoun, but you always put me or I last. Okay. Same thing if it's a list. If it's, Emma, Lisa, and I, or Emma, Lisa, and me, you're going to be the last person in that if you're using I or me. Use it to replace a collective noun whose members act as a group. So use they or them to replace a collective noun whose members act individually. If the plural sounds odd, change the noun to a plural. So jury members. So again, sort of like we talked about those nouns, we talked about the army, right? It's a bunch of people, but you're talking about them as one individual unit, one group. So you would use it for something like that. Okay, so looking at the workbook here, and content topics, use pronouns such as myself, yourself, himself, ourselves, themselves, only when a subject and an object are the same, right? So if I'm using self, that means I've already used, the subject is the same. For example, I know myself, or she did it herself. Never use these pronouns as subjects. So that's the other rule. Yourself, myself, himself, ourselves, themselves will never be a subject, right? They're going to be part of an object, or the object. Like if I said, I built this shelf myself, right? I built this cabinet myself. I am the subject. I am also the object, but I'll use self there. You should wash the dishes yourself. There's another example. So there you go. All right. Nilda, you want to try number 1 for us here?
Yes. Write a letter to the new representative whom, comma, after 2 recounts, comma, finally was elected. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, change whom to whoever. B, change whom to whom. C, change whom to whomever. D, change whom to which. B?
Yep. B as in boy. So whom to who? Who is part of the subject, the new representative who. So who's part of the subject there? All right, good job. B as in boy for number 1. Okay, Sasha Gay, you want to try number 2?
It says Alex sent a copy to Vivian and I. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, change Vivian and I to I and Vivian. B, change Vivian and I to she and me. C, change Vivian and I to Vivian and me. D, change Vivian and I to her and I. Is it C?
It is C. Yes, it's C as in cat. I, that's a subject pronoun. If I sent a copy to Vivian, right, we'd use it there. Me, we need that as the object. Right? I could also say I sent a copy to Vivian and myself, right? If I was to get all fancy. So me, object pronoun. Another tip there. Okay, it's right at the end of the sentence. Most likely, that's going to be an object pronoun that I need there, especially when it comes to things like Vivian and I, or Vivian and me. C as in cat. All right, here we go. Customer service policies. So as a manager of California Auto Parts Incorporated, I aim to provide the best value in replacement auto parts and installation services. Service team blank. Christiana, what do we want to use here?
Okay. Service team members. A.
A, we are part of the subject. Service team members and I want our customers to trust us and to come back for part replacement and installation. To ensure that customers receive the highest quality parts and service, we offer a 3-part satisfaction guarantee, transparent pricing on all replacement parts. When we deliver an estimate, the estimate lists the wholesale price of the part and the 10% stocking fee. If multiple options are available for a part, we will share the different prices, explain the options, and make recommendations that reflect the best value and choice for each situation. Guaranteed estimate pricing. If the service costs exceed the estimate by more than 10%, we gladly complete the work blank. Grace, what do we do here?
Ourselves.
Ourselves. Yep. So we are part of the subject, right? We gladly complete the work ourselves. So using that again, since we are part of the subject, we're going to use selves there. We complete the work ourselves, and the balance is free. 90-day guarantee. All parts are guaranteed for 90 days. We want each customer to feel secure when blank. Nilda, what do we use here?
A.
So here we want each customer, there's our tip off. We used each. So we're going to go with he or she. We're talking about individuals. So we want each customer to feel secure when he or she leaves our garages. If we said we want our customers to feel secure, then we could use they. But we want to make sure that we're speaking about them as individuals. He or she leaves our garage. That's why, should a part break or malfunction within 90 days of installation, we will provide a replacement part and service at no cost. I personally ensure that we will stand behind any part we install. If you have any questions, ask anyone here and blank. Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
B.
Say B?
Yes.
Yeah, it's B. So if you have questions, ask anyone here and whoever. That's all part of the subject, right? If you so whoever part of the subject, whoever you speak to will be happy to provide more information. Choose our service personnel and mechanics to do the job at the best price. Ned Rainey, manager. All right. Okay, that was a long passage. Let's see what we got here. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Cassidy, for the past 3 years, I have had the pleasure of being part of the exceptional healthcare team at Manchester Pediatrics. I am sorry to inform you that as of November 15th of this year, I will no longer be with the practice. My colleagues of Manchester Pediatrics, Dr. Felix Hernandez and Dr. Jordan Carroll, are knowledgeable physicians skilled at working with young patients. At the beginning of November, the practice is also welcoming Dr. Tanya Smith, blank, Christiana. What do we use here?
B.
B? Yep. So that
Yeah.
is part of the subject, right? So Dr. Tanya Smith, she's part of the subject, who comes to the practice after her residency in pediatrics at the prestigious Marsh Clinic in Nashville. These accomplished and dedicated physicians have decades of pediatric experience. Among them, blank should give you confidence in their experience. Grace, you want to try that one?
Okay.
This combined experience, D.
Yeah, right. So, one of those sort of test taking tips, if it's got if the options include this in there somewhere or which, you should probably look, because I'm going to need more. I need more than just that which or this. So this combined experience, right? Combined experience is that antecedent that we need to complete the idea, tip the reader off. This combined experience should give you confidence in their expertise. Please call the office to let the practice know the position blank. Nilda, you want to try that one?
Please call the office to let the practice know the position. B.
A. I'm sorry. C. Whom. So we need an object here. So please call the office to let the practice know the position, whom are objects, right? You're calling the office whom you would like as your child's pediatrician, whom is receiving the action of calling the office and asking. We realize that your child may require urgent care before you have chosen a new doctor. Dr. Hernandez and I have spoken together and blank. Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
He and I, A.
A, he and I. So that's part, Dr. Right. We got Dr. Hernandez and I have spoken together. We're still talking about the subject here. And he and I have agreed that he will see all children who require urgent care. And then right at the end, we have that object, we have another subject pronoun. So he and I have agreed that he will see all children who require urgent care. All right, and then if you decide to take your child to another practice, please call the office to obtain a medical release form. Please also be aware that you might need to notify your health insurer of change of physician. Thank you for your confidence and trust. It has been a pleasure to work with you. Okay. Moving along here, last passage. Dear editor, I'm writing today on behalf of the citizens and pedestrians of this town to remind the community that dogs, though they can be wonderful companions, are not people. Their rights are not violated by having to walk on a leash, nor do we ask too much of their owners by insisting that they clean up after their pets. On a recent stroll down Main Street, my wife and I met several dogs off their leashes and wandering far ahead of their owners. These dogs bounded up to blank Christiana.
B.
D, my wife and me. So these dogs, right? We use these, so we have dogs as the antecedent as part of the subject. These dogs bounded up to my wife and me. So there's the object, right? The dogs bounded. We're receiving that action. My wife and me. Me is the object pronoun there. What if one of us had a fear of dogs? There's an off-leash area in the local park. Every owner should keep blank. Grace, what do we do here?
D. His or her.
His or her, right? Every owner. So in this case, just like each, right? We're talking specifically about every individual, every owner. So his or her, in that case, singular, should keep his or her dog leashed outside of the park. The responsibility should be on owners to restrain their dogs, not on us to endure unleashed dogs. In addition, I find that all too often I must not so much walk down the sidewalk as tiptoe down it and attempt to avoid dog droppings. Again, the responsibility lies with the dog owners. Anyone who can't stomach the thought of scooping up a dog's mess should not get a dog to begin with. It should not be up to pedestrians like blank. Nilda, what do we do here?
Yep, petitions like. C?
You say C?
Yeah.
It's B. You're on the right track there. But so it is an object. But so it is our subject here, right? It should not be up to pedestrians like me. So it's just that one object there to sidestep a dog's mess. Okay, and then lastly, I urge the dog owners of this town to demonstrate some consideration. The community should insist that police officers enforce fines for dog owners who don't keep dogs on leashes and who don't clean up after blank. Sasha Gay, what do we do here? A, them, right? Dog, so who don't keep dogs on leashes and who don't clean up after them. And then we have that pronoun this or these, that we need that antecedent. That's the only one with that antecedent. These practices are against the law. Okay. And there is our advanced pronouns, thinking about subject and object. I have a list on Google Classroom I'm putting up of subject versus object pronouns, so you know the difference there. So you can take a look, make sure that you're using the correct ones there as well. It's just a matter of thinking about which one's the subject, which one's the object, who's conducting the action and who's receiving the action, who's on the receiving end of it. All right, any questions, or everybody get our answers there before we move on? We're all good? Okay, so more advanced practice. But now we're moving to subject-verb agreement. So we encountered this not that long ago, and my page isn't going to open up all the way. There we go. Okay, so this lesson, by the time you complete this lesson, you will be able to make correct subject-verb agreement in cases where the verb does not immediately follow the subject. Okay, so the simpler sentences, understanding the right subject and verb is a little easier. If you move the verb, it's different, or it's not right next to the subject, it might be a little more difficult to see which form of the verb and subject you need to take. So we'll get some practice here then. So lesson 16. All right, listen to our audio here.
As you learned in Lesson 7, subject-verb agreement is usually clear when a verb immediately follows the subject. However, verbs do not always follow subjects. Mismatched subjects and verbs often occur in sentences with compound subjects, subjects that sound plural, such as everyone, subjects that include indefinite pronouns that can be singular or plural, like all, sentences beginning with there is or there are, or with other constructions in which the verb does not follow the subject, compound subjects separated by nor, and subjects that include prepositional phrases that come between the subject and the verb.
And so there's all different ways that you may have the subject and verb not next to each other. And that might cause a little confusion as far as which verb tense you're going, or I'm sorry, like whether it's a plural or singular verb that you need. So we have some rules here for that. A compound subject connected with and takes a plural verb, regardless of how far apart. So it never matters. It never matters how far apart the subject and verb appear. Subjects appear in the sentence. So the woman and that snarling dog in the silly pink raincoat we saw last night at dinner are walking down the street. Okay, lots of words in there, but the subject, right, are the woman and the dog. We can eliminate everything else because we know that the subject is still the woman and the dog. What we have there, that's a compound subject, so we use that plural verb are. Okay, when compound subjects are joined by nor, the verb agrees with the subject that is closer. Wow. Okay. Same thing with or, right? So neither money nor any vacation days make this job appealing. So what's on the other side of that nor? It's plural. Many vacation days, right? That's plural. Make is our plural verb then. Make this job appealing. Asides. So we talked about interruptions, right? Adding information and things like that. So interruptions that come between subject and verb, this one you gotta be careful with. Do not make a singular subject plural. Your subject doesn't change just because you add information, right? You have an interruption in there. Janice's brother, that's the subject. Okay, Janice's brother, in addition to her parents, is moving next week. Okay, so Janice's brother, that's what we're going with there. Right, so they don't make a singular subject plural. Still have the singular Janice's brother, so we use the singular verb is. If we flipped around, her parents, in addition to Janice's brother, are moving next week, because parents is the plural verb. We're going to use the plural are. Just to flip it around to see how that works. When a prepositional phrase comes between a subject and verb, agreement is not affected. The river at the base of the mountains runs quickly. You take out that additional information, right? The subject is still the river. You could say the river runs quickly. Everything else in that sentence is additional information. So the river at the base of the mountains runs quickly. Each, one of, and every takes a singular verb, right? Just with our advanced pronoun lesson, his or her, you can think of that the same way, singular, because there's discussing individuals. So like this case, one of the soccer players kicks the ball. One of the soccer players kicks, singular verb, the ball. Each, right? If we said each of the soccer players kicks the ball, same thing, using the singular. If we said the soccer players, then that's going to be plural because the subject now is soccer players. So the soccer players kick, plural, the ball. Okay, plural verb, plural subject. One in this case is our singular subject. A number takes a plural verb. The number takes a singular verb. So here's some that get a little tricky, right? A number of people ride the bus to work. So that is plural. The number of potholes in the road is dangerous. Singular verb. Okay. So all none, any, some, more, and most can be singular or plural depending on their use. So sometimes it gets a little tricky, but they have really great examples here. All the trees are blooming, right? So trees, plural, plural noun, plural verb are. All the water is missing from the fish tank. So in this case, water is talking about one specific unit of water in one place. That's singular. All the water, singular verb, is missing from the fish tank. Next rule, the subject follows the verb in there is or there are constructions. Is or are must agree with the subject, right? There are a pot and pan missing from the kitchen, right? So pot and pan makes up a compound subject. So we use are as that plural verb. If I just said pot, right, then it would be there is a pot missing from the kitchen. Collective nouns. So like jury and navy, and talk about army, team, all those collective nouns take singular verbs and pronouns when the group acts as a whole. So, right, we talked about that. It's one unit, it's one group. The jury delivers its verdict. The army fights the war, right? Delivers, singular, fights, singular as verbs. So acting as one unit. All right, so let's give the quiz a try. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Sentences that ask questions may cause subject-verb agreement problems because part of the verb comes before the subject. For example, does Ken or Amy want to attend? Remember the agreement rule. So does, right? Ken or Amy. Does, plural, Ken or Amy. So plural, want to attend. All right. Okay, so let's try number one here. Grace, what do we do with this one?
Okay. In his pocket was a pencil, a piece of cheese, and a phone. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A. Change packet to packet. B. Change was to where. C. Change was to S. And D. Change a phone to two phones. Yeah, in his pockets, a pencil. In his pockets is a pencil. C.
C.
Oh,
B. So were.
where?
Yeah. We have, and also just let me just say, he has a piece of cheese in his pocket. That's gross. So in his pocket were. We want that plural verb because we have a compound subject, right? Pencil, piece of cheese, and phone. So were there. Cheese in your pocket. All right, now let's look at our passage here. So to whom it may concern, it is with great pleasure that I write this letter of recommendation for Ricardo Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez, intern for Walters Architectural Group for the last 2 summers. He was an integral part of our team. Neither his fellow interns nor his direct supervisor blank anything but positive things to say about him. Christiana, what do we need here? There, Christiana. We can come back to you. We'll try Nilda. Nilda, what do we want to use here?
Neither his fellow interns nor his. A?
We want D, has. So remember that rule, it said whatever comes at the after nor, so neither his fellow interns nor his direct supervisors, whatever's coming closest to the verb. So direct supervisor is singular. We go with the singular verb has, anything but positive things to say about him. Mr. Sanchez's work ethic, his willingness to put in long hours when necessary, and his can-do attitude blank him. Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
A.
We want B, have made. So Mr. Sanchez's work ethic. So here, work ethic, his willingness to put in long hours. This one's tricky because it's a compound subject. Work ethic, his willingness to put in long hours when necessary, and his can-do attitude. So we treat those compound subjects as plural. So we use have, the plural verb, have made him such a special employee. Okay, so be there. And this is where these get tricky, right? Because that verb is you know, it's not necessarily a long way from the subject, but the subject is multiple parts. So it's compound, making it plural. When a subject was due on a tight deadline, he pitched in to ensure that all the work was done on time and done well. Whether a simple task or high-level design assignment with complex specification was given to him, he was always enthusiastic and conscientious and completed the job. He was happy to help out and make copies or coffee when needed, and he was able to make significant contributions to our design work. Mr. Sanchez is a quick learner who needs very little supervision. Our new suite of drafting software programs, blank, no match for Mr. Sanchez. Grace, what we used here.
C.
Was, yeah, that one's kind of tricky. Our new suite, so our new suite, that's our subject of drafting software programs. So that one wants to try to trip you up that you're going to use the plural, but you use the singular here. Was our new suite of drafting software programs was no match for Mr. Sanchez's technical skill. He mastered the software in only a few weeks. At our firm, we encourage all employees to enhance their technical skills, but only a few have shown the interest and aptitude displayed by Mr. Sanchez. I strongly recommend Mr. Sanchez. I, as well as my colleagues here, Christiana, what do we do here? How about Nilda? We'll try that.
A.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's C, am. So there's that interrupting phrase, right? They throw in all this noise in between our subject and our verb. But I is still the subject. I strongly recommend Mr. Sanchez. Oh, I'm sorry. I, right? Starting that sentence there. So we could take out, that's another way you could look at that. that extra information. If I take it out, I have, I am confident that he will be a fine addition to your firm. And then we add that in and won't change the subject-verb agreement. I is still the subject. I, as well as my colleagues here, am confident that he will be a fine addition to your firm. Okay. So we got our answers there for quiz. All right. So moving on, and I will post our rules online on Google Classroom so you can review those. Using logic, so sentences that ask questions may cause subject-verb agreement problems, right? We already saw that because part of the verb comes before the subject. Oh, wait, that's the same thing. I haven't clicked over yet. I thought that sounded familiar. Okay, so sometimes sentence construction or certain pronouns can make subject-verb agreement more difficult, especially if we remove the verb and the subject away from each other. If the subject's right at the beginning, we throw in all this other noise and everything, but you just got to make sure that you're zoning in, you know what the subject is. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Don't worry about descriptive words. Don't worry about things they're adding to it. It's either right there or it's after the, an or nor situation. So let's look at the workbook then. Okay, so here, new information. So find the subject closest to the verb in a neither nor construction. If the subject is singular, use a singular verb. If it is plural, use a plural verb. The first part of the subject does not matter, right? If it's nor, we go with what's after that nor. Doesn't matter, what comes before it. It's what's after that's important there when it comes to neither nor sentence construction. Okay. Sasha Gay, how about you try number 1 here?
Each of my daughters are talented. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, change are to were. B, change are to is. C, change are to have been. D, change are to is being. B.
Yeah, B here, right? We use the singular is because we used each. And some of those sound pretty crazy if we try to use them, right? Each of my daughters have been talented. Each of my daughters is being talented, right? Those sound pretty crazy. The one you'd want to watch out for is are or were. Each of my daughters were talented. Well, we're, maybe if they were dead, but we got the impression here that they're still alive, right? So we're going to use the present tense there. We change that to is the singular. All right, change is are to is because we use each. All right, Grace, you try number 2.
Okay. Neither the cat nor the dog are allowed in the house. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, change are to been. B, change are to is. C, change are to have been. And D, change are to were. Neither. Is it B or D?
D, yeah, change are to is, right? So there's that construction with nor. Neither the cats nor the dog. We have the dog, just one puppy, just one dog there, singular. So we use is for our singular verb. So B as in boy. All right. Experienced realtors know that staging a home before putting it on the market can dramatically increase the selling price. Staging involves enhancing the home's appearance so that it is appealing to the greatest number of potential buyers. A cluttered home that has been poorly maintained, as well as an empty home with no furniture or decorations, blank to most buyers. Let's try Christiana one more time. See if she's there. Nope. All right. We'll see. Nilda, what do we want to do here?
D.
D, we're going to use C. So a cluttered home that has been poorly maintained. That's our subject, a cluttered home. So we use is unappealing. Is our singular verb. So we could just say a cluttered home is unappealing to most buyers, right? We could shorten that sentence, take out all that noise that's explaining what a cluttered home is. A cluttered home that has been poorly maintained, as well as an empty home with no furniture, right? So this right here at the beginning is our subject. All right, so is unappealing to most buyers. Well-staged homes are furnished, but each of the rooms blank, free of clutter. Sasha Gay, what do we put here?
R.
Actually, this is too. So well-staged homes are furnished, but each of the rooms is free of that doesn't sound right. What's going on here? Well-staged homes are furnished, but each of the rooms are free of clutter and furniture is not crowded. Huh.
Each.
Okay, I think we got one of those situations where they're giving us a wrong answer. Because well,
Maybe because of the each.
oh yeah. Grace, thank you. Yeah, each. Man, I see. Sometimes you got to catch me. Yeah, each of the rooms. So that each makes it singular. Okay, man, I'm glad you caught that, because I mean, we're going to have to put a to just get it correct, but that is correct. Is the singular verb, because each, we use each there. So it's changing rooms to an individual singular form. Oh, okay. So yeah, been doing this too long. Well-staged homes are furnished, but each of the rooms is free of clutter and furniture. And that's one of those, it caught me, and furniture is not crowded. There's another clue for us though at the end, if I kind of paid attention, because it says furniture is not crowded. There's that verb again. So we would know that the first part's going to be is as well. Yeah, it's that each they threw in there. So for example, you don't want a living room with pushed against all opposite a TV, a seating arrangement that includes at least a sofa, an armchair, and a coffee table looks best. Editing down, organizing, and getting rid of clutter, blank. Grace, what do we do here?
C.
R. We have a compound subject, right? Editing down, organizing, and getting rid of clutter. So plural verb. R, key to effective staging. You don't want too many knickknacks or too many personal items. You want the potential buyers to see the home as theirs, not to be reminded of you and your family by seeing all of your photos and mementos. Clean the home as if you had guests coming to visit. Newspapers piled on tables or chairs don't make the best first impression to either guest or buyers. Tidy up bookcases, edit down how many objects are placed on tables, and clean out closets. A fresh coat of paint in the interior rooms is almost always a good idea. No buyer likes to see scuffed or dirty walls. A number of buyers. Nilda, what do we do here?
Number of buyers. A.
C. So prefer. The rule there, remember a number. So we use, they have that rule up there. Let me see. Oh, it was on the other one. When it comes to a or the. So with a number, we use the plural. So a number of buyers prefer plural verb, neutral callers. C. So consider colors like tan, cream, and beige when painting. Try to avoid colors that are too bold or specific to your own tastes. Okay. Now a new calling system to all Fabco employees. Last week, we finished updating our conference calling system. As of today, all of our employees blank to use the new Fabco messenger service. Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
Are required. D.
Are required. Yeah, as of today, all of our employees, so employees, this one, we actually have the subject right next to the verb. So employees, plural, are plural, required to use the new Fabco messenger service. The cost of maintaining telephone lines in all of the 45 countries with Fabco offices, blank. Grace, what do we do here?
B.
Did you say B?
Yes.
B as in boy. Yep,
Yeah.
the cost, right? That is our verb, singular verb, singular subject, the cost. You can eliminate all that other junk in that sentence and just say the cost is enormous, right? Everything else there is describing what the cost refers to. Okay. Our telecommunications provider charges $50 per hour for our conference calls, even with only 2 participants. The new Fabco Messenger software routes audio and video over the internet, allowing us to forego the expensive telecommunications infrastructure altogether. This transition is estimated to save thousands of dollars every month. Every manager with team members in other offices, as well as managers working remotely from home, blank, encouraged to try the new video conferencing feature. Let's see, Nilda, try that one.
B.
It's A, and this, like Grace reminded me with the each before, we have that every at the beginning of the sentence, right? Every manager. So it's talking about individual managers, and we're going to use a singular verb. So every manager with team members is encouraged to try the new video conferencing features. Using them will enable you to spend valuable face time with your team while simultaneously. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought I lost my place there. You can obtain new headsets from your office's IT help desk. Blank. Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
There is.
So here we want there are a monomodal, and it's a compound subject, a monomodal and 2 stereo models. So if we just had monomodal, we'd say there is a monomodal available, but we have a compound subject. There are a mono model and 2 stereo models available. Each model plugs directly into your laptop without additional software. Employees working in remote locations can purchase their own headsets and submit scanned receipts to the IT department for reimbursement up to $60. Okay. These get a little tricky. Our final passage. So new badge policy. Currently, a number of types of photo identification, blank by wavelength. Grace, what do we want here?
As shown, D.
Right, a number of types, right? There is our plural subject. A number of types of photo identification are shown by Wavelength employees and contractors to gain access to the buildings on the Wavelength campus. To avoid miscommunications and other security issues, the following badge policy will be in effect beginning November 15th. Wavelength personnel on this campus blank to comply with this policy. Nilda, what do we do here?
D.
Are required. So Wavelength personnel is plural. Wavelength personnel on this campus are, that's our plural verb, are required to comply with this policy. No exceptions will be made. All employees and contractors must wear their badges at all times while in the facility. Previous policy required that badges or IDs be shown only at point of entry. Badges must be clearly visible at all times. Clothing should not obstruct a clear view of the badge. Employees have customarily worn badges on shirt pockets where they are often obscured by jackets or sweaters. Employees and contractors must wipe their badges at each entry door, even if the door is already open. Too often these days, an employee enters this door with a group of people, including other employees or visitors to the facility. Link the card to show. Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
B, hold up. Is it B?
It's D. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. No, it's, sorry, it's C, holds up. So, an employee, okay, that right there is our subject. Too often these days, an employee enters a door with a group of people, including other employees or visitors to the facility. So all of that is, you know, more noise. We just want to look at an employee as the subject, holds up the card to show security, and passes through. This method no longer will be permissible. Employees and contractors without badges must enter the building through the main doors to obtain a temporary badge. Neither department heads nor any other supervisor blank here.
Grace?
Yeah.
Hey. Okay. Leader departments. Okay, leader singular. Okay. D.
Is. So we have a singular, nor, right? There's that little word. Whatever comes after nor is what we're using for our subject. Singular subject. Any other supervisor, singular verb is allowed to authorize a security guard to ignore this regulation. Okay, now those get kind of tough. Did everybody get our answers there? Okay. All right, good to go. So let me stop recording.